Imagine you're in the middle of an argument. Someone starts yelling, insulting you, and trying to provoke you in every possible way, but instead of losing your temper, you simply smile calmly, not because you agree with them, but because you've chosen not to be affected. You have control. You have inner peace that no one can take from you. How many times have you handed your peace of mind to someone who didn't deserve it? A careless comment, a disrespectful action, an unexpected betrayal, and there you go, letting someone else control your emotions and ruin your day. But what if I told you that this is your choice, that no one and nothing can disturb your peace unless you allow it? What you're about to learn will change the way you see the world. This isn't about ignoring or suppressing your emotions, but about understanding a fundamental truth. You are in control of how you feel. I'm going to share 15 powerful lessons from Stoic philosophy that, if applied, will give you a level of mental control very few people ever achieve. But before we dive in, I want to invite you to make a commitment to your own transformation. Leave a comment saying, "Today, I choose to take control." By doing this, you're marking the beginning of a powerful journey toward your best self. This is your first step toward achieving the self-mastery and inner peace you truly deserve. 1. The true nature of offense. Let's begin by understanding the true nature of offense. Think of a time when someone hurt you. Maybe it was a cruel comment, a disrespectful action, or even an unexpected betrayal. Instead of feeling offended, what if you asked yourself, why am I letting this disturb my peace? One of the core lessons Stoics teach is this: offense has no power over us unless we accept it as such. What truly upsets us isn't what others say or do, it's how we interpret their actions. When someone insults you or tries to hurt you, the issue doesn't lie in what they did, it lies in how you choose to react. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us that nothing offends us unless we form an opinion that it should. In other words, it's our mind that labels an action as offensive, not the action itself. No one can take your peace unless you give them permission. Now imagine this. Instead of getting angry, you see the offense for what it is, something completely out of your control. You get to choose your reaction, and if you choose not to be offended, you take back your power. You leave the other person powerless over your emotional state. Now let's reflect on this a bit more. How often have you let a stranger's comment, a friend's mistake, or a boss's criticism deeply affect your mood? This happens because we often depend on external validation. We want to be recognized, respected, but the truth is, no one has the power to validate or invalidate us except ourselves. Imagine becoming like an impenetrable fortress. When someone tries to attack you with words, you simply observe, aware that it says nothing about who you are but everything about who they are. Offense loses its grip over you because you now understand that your peace and happiness are built from within. They don't depend on what others think or say. True freedom, according to the Stoics, lies in this: realizing that offense isn't in the other person's actions, it's in our reaction to those actions. When you take back control of your mind, you realize that insults are just empty words. They don't affect your inner balance unless you let them. Now, think of all the times you let something small throw you off balance. Each one of those moments was a missed opportunity to apply Stoic wisdom and protect your peace. The key is simple. Don't let other people's behavior dictate your emotional state. You hold the power to choose your response. And when you make that conscious decision, your peace of mind will never again be compromised. After all, your peace comes from within, and no one can take that from you unless you allow it. 2. Make self-control your greatest power. Self-control isn't just about staying calm, it's about choosing your power in every situation. Most people go through life reacting on autopilot. They hear something offensive and boom, anger takes over. They get criticized and instantly feel hurt or defensive. But here's the truth. Every time you react impulsively, you hand over your power to someone else. The Stoics believed that the ability to control yourself is the foundation of all greatness, because it means you're not a slave to your emotions. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. He had more power than almost anyone in history, but he never let that power control him. Instead, he wrote pages and pages reminding himself to stay calm, humble, and rational, even when everything around him was chaos. And if a man who ruled an empire could keep his composure under pressure, what's stopping us? When you master self-control, you become like a still lake. No matter how many stones are thrown into it, its surface always returns to calm. That's the power you're capable of. Now, how do you build this level of control? Start by creating a space between stimulus and response. When something happens that would normally trigger you, pause, breathe, don't react immediately. This pause is your superpower. It's in this space that you gain clarity, and you make conscious choices instead of emotional ones. You begin to respond instead of react. And here's what's beautiful. The more you practice this, the stronger you get. You stop being manipulated by external forces. You stop letting others push your buttons because you've taken your buttons back. Imagine this: someone insults you, but instead of firing back, you smile. Not because you're weak, but because you know that your self-control makes you untouchable. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. You no longer need to win every argument, because peace has become more important than being right. And here's something powerful to remember. Self-control doesn't mean bottling things up or pretending to be okay. It means choosing the response that aligns with your values, not with your impulses. That's real strength. So next time someone tests your patience, remember, they're giving you an opportunity to grow stronger. Every challenge is a chance to exercise your power, and the more you choose calm over chaos, the more unshakable you become. Expectation is the root of all disappointment. 3. Expectation is the root of all disappointment. Picture for a moment that you place your complete trust in someone. You anticipate that this person will behave in a certain way, support your ideas, or return your kindness. But eventually they fall short, they let you down, betray you, or simply don't meet the image you had of them. How do you feel in that moment? The key takeaway here is clear. The higher your expectations of others, the greater your chances of facing disappointment and frustration. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, warned us about this trap when he said, "The man who looks for goodness in others is destined to suffer, for human nature is inherently flawed." If we expect others to act according to our personal standards, we're inviting frustration, because everyone has their own flaws, limits, and choices that we can't influence. This idea is echoed by other notable thinkers, such as philosopher and psychologist Ptolemy. He reminds us that love does not mean giving others the responsibility for our happiness. When we place our inner peace and joy in someone else's hands, we risk losing our own sense of balance. We become vulnerable to the unpredictable nature of others' actions, which rarely align perfectly with what we envision. Philosopher Michel de Montaigne also reflected on this when he said, "Our greatest source of suffering is not what others do to us, but what we expect them to do." Too often we burden others with our expectations, hoping they will fulfill a role that truly belongs to us. When they fall short, our peace is shattered, and suffering follows. By lowering your expectations of others, you start freeing yourself from this emotional trap. This doesn't mean becoming cold or detached, but rather recognizing that others are on their own journey, with their own mistakes and limitations. Instead of wishing the world would match your vision, you begin to align yourself with reality, without being frustrated by things beyond your reach. The practice is simple but profound. Make your inner peace a priority and understand that other people's behavior is outside your control. Once you release others from the burden of meeting your expectations, you realize you hold the power to choose your reaction. Regardless of what others do or don't do, you keep your calm. This concept is beautifully illustrated by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who often reflected during his meditations that, as a ruler, he couldn't govern people's actions. He didn't expect everyone to live by his standards, but accepted that the world was outside of his grasp. Instead, he focused on preserving his own character and virtue, no matter what unfolded around him. When you embrace this mindset, you'll see that you don't need to carry the weight of others' shortcomings. Everyone is on their own path, and your peace depends on not allowing outside behavior to disturb your inner world. By easing your expectations of others, you take a crucial step toward a life that is lighter, more grounded, and centered on what truly matters, your emotional well-being. Cultivate indifference to provocation. 4. Remain unmoved by provocation. Picture a moment when someone, out of frustration or malice, tries to provoke you, maybe with a sarcastic remark, a harsh critique, or an aggressive gesture. Your initial impulse might be to retaliate, to prove you won't tolerate disrespect. But what if instead you chose complete indifference? The Stoics taught that true strength lies not in striking back or being consumed by others' actions, but in preserving your inner calm regardless of what happens around you. As Epictetus often said, "It's not what happens to you that harms you, but how you respond." A provocation only holds power over you if you allow it to influence your emotions and thoughts. This brings us to a powerful truth. You don't have to respond to everything. When someone tries to tear you down, you have the option to simply not engage. This doesn't mean being passive or weak. It means refusing to waste your energy on what doesn't deserve it. Indifference to provocation is a sign of self-mastery and wisdom. The philosopher and psychotherapist Albert Ellis, who founded rational emotive behavior therapy, once said, "People don't offend us. We allow ourselves to feel offended." The idea here is that a provocation by itself has no real effect unless we decide to give it meaning. When you learn to remain neutral in the face of provocation, you're reclaiming control over your emotional responses instead of reacting to external triggers. Think about moments when you've allowed provocations to get the best of you. Maybe you argued with someone. Maybe you lost your temper because of a cruel comment. These reactions, though human, often only fuel the conflict and pull you further away from your own peace of mind. Choosing indifference breaks that cycle. It makes you stronger and more resilient. In daily life, this means brushing off destructive criticism, envy, or malicious comments. When someone tries to push your buttons, you can choose to observe and, like a bystander, without letting it touch your emotional state. This doesn't mean you agree with what's being said, but that you're deciding not to let the moment define your mood. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, although not a Stoic, shared a similar idea. He wrote, "The best way to deal with the unbearable is to ignore them. They are like poison, only harmful if you consume it." He understood that sometimes silence is the most powerful response. Being indifferent to provocation is a skill built over time, through awareness and reflection. Every time you stay composed in a tense moment, you strengthen your ability to remain at peace, no matter what life throws your way. Provocation loses its grip when you no longer respond emotionally, and in doing so, you become unshakable, able to live in harmony with whatever unfolds. So next time someone tries to provoke you, remember, you don't have to react. You have the power to choose your response, and often, choosing not to respond at all is the wisest move. By doing so, you rise above those who have yet to master themselves. Don't forget that every situation is a test. 5. Never forget that every situation is a test. Picture this. You're going through your day when suddenly, something challenging happens. Maybe there's a conflict at work, tension in your personal life, or a frustrating moment where things don't go as planned. How do you respond to these situations? Do you see them as obstacles to avoid, or as chances to test your ability to stay calm, grounded, and wise? To the Stoics, every moment in life is a test, a chance to practice virtue and refine your character. When life pushes back rather than viewing it as a setback, you can choose to see it as a trial of your patience, your courage, your clarity. Philosopher William James, known as the father of American psychology, once said, "The greatest discovery of our generation is that a human being can change his life by changing his attitude." This echoes the Stoic principle. It's not events themselves that hold power over us, but how we choose to respond that determines whether we grow weaker or stronger. Each difficulty becomes an invitation to ask yourself, how can I use this moment to test and strengthen my wisdom and self-control? It's not about avoiding discomfort or reacting impulsively, but meeting the challenge with a composed mind, seeing it as a lesson and an opportunity for growth. Philosopher Immanuel Kant also reflected on this idea when he said, "What we call obstacles are simply opportunities in disguise. That difficult, unfair, or frustrating situation, it might actually be your chance to move closer to virtue, not just a misfortune, but a moment designed to stretch and shape you." When you start viewing life as a series of tests, you stop feeling powerless in the face of adversity. Instead of anger or despair, you meet the moment with curiosity and resilience, seeking solutions and meaning. Even painful experiences start to serve a higher purpose. They become fuel for your personal development. Say someone treats you poorly. That's a test of your patience and your ability to remain unmoved. You make a mistake at work. It's a test of your humility and willingness to learn. Every moment can serve as a mirror for you to rise above old patterns, refine your character, and show up stronger than before. Seneca, in his letters, reminded us that it's not what happens that matters, but how you handle it that shapes your life. This teaching encourages us to find the hidden lesson within each experience, good or bad, and embrace it with a steady heart and open mind. So next time you face difficulty, remember, this is not merely an obstacle to get past. It's a test to step into. Every situation holds within it a powerful opportunity to better understand yourself, to develop your virtues, and to demonstrate the strength of your character. When you start living with this mindset, life's tests become stepping stones toward growth, and every challenge becomes a path to becoming your best self. The art of emotional detachment. 6. Letting go is not losing. Imagine this. You've invested a great deal of time, energy, and emotion into something or someone. Maybe it's a project, a relationship, or even an expectation you had for the future. But then, unexpectedly, things change. Something goes wrong. Life doesn't unfold the way you imagined. How do you feel in that moment? Sad, frustrated, anxious, maybe even lost? To the Stoics, emotional detachment is an essential skill to maintain inner peace and serenity in the face of life's unpredictability. Instead of clinging to outcomes or expectations, Stoicism teaches us to emotionally release our grip on external events, recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from what happens around us, but from how we respond to what happens within us. Philosopher David Hume, not a Stoic himself but very much aligned in thought, once said, "Happiness depends more on the disposition of the mind than on external circumstances." When we attach our well-being to an outcome or to another person, we're placing our peace in something we don't control. And life, as we know, is uncertain. Relationships shift, plans fall through, unexpected losses happen. Emotional detachment, according to the Stoics, doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means not allowing our emotions to take over when reality deviates from our expectations. As Epictetus put it, it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things. When we stop outsourcing our happiness to external conditions, we gain the freedom to live with more lightness and tranquility, regardless of the chaos around us. Mastering detachment makes you more resilient to life's inevitable changes, because you realize that what truly matters is how you handle the situation, not the situation itself. Friedrich Nietzsche, too, warned us about the fleeting nature of life and relationships, and said that the key to happiness is becoming strong enough not to be enslaved by what is impermanent. By letting go of people and things, you strengthen your emotional autonomy. You stop letting external shifts dictate your inner peace. Think about what happens when you cling to something outside your control. You create expectations, and when those expectations aren't met, frustration follows. Emotional detachment is the practice of releasing those expectations, learning to value experiences and people without allowing them to define who you are or how you feel. Take work, for example. Say you pour your soul into a project, tying your self-worth to its success. If it fails, emotional detachment allows you to accept the outcome with calm. It doesn't shatter your self-esteem. Instead, you reflect, adjust, and move forward without carrying the emotional baggage of failure. This is just as important in personal relationships. When you no longer rely on others to be your source of happiness, you become more grounded and authentic. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means your peace isn't in someone else's hands. You're not dependent, and that leads to healthier relationships built on mutual respect, not emotional dependence. Mastering the art of emotional detachment sets you free to accept impermanence, to be present, and to recognize that control is not a prerequisite for joy. Real peace comes from within, and the ability to let go of what you can't control, that might just be the most powerful form of peace you can find. Visualize how small the problem really is. 7. Visualize the problem and how small it actually is. Think of a problem that's been weighing on your mind, something that feels big, urgent, maybe even overwhelming. It could be a debt, a recent argument, a mistake you made, or a situation that feels completely out of your control. Now close your eyes for a moment and imagine observing that same situation from above, from the top of a mountain, then from an airplane. Now picture looking at your life from outer space. Does the problem still seem that big? The Stoics practiced a mental exercise known as the view from above, a way to step back emotionally from events and see them in perspective. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote to himself, "Look down from the sky and contemplate the vastness of time and space. All that happens is like a leaf in the wind." This doesn't mean denying the problem. It means seeing it in proportion to the whole. Philosopher Blaise Pascal reflected on this too when he said, "Man is only a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed." In other words, we are small in the grand scheme of the universe, but we have the power to give meaning or take away the weight of the things we experience. Realizing how insignificant a problem is can be a powerful antidote to anxiety and despair. When you understand that the thing tormenting you today might not even matter in 5 years, or even in 5 months, you free yourself from its emotional grip. You create internal space to breathe, reflect, and act more clearly. Imagine a storm inside a glass. When you're inside it, everything feels chaotic, dark, and desperate. But when you step back, you realize it's just water swirling in a vessel too small to hold your emotional universe. Most of our problems are like that, big only until we shift our perspective. Cognitive scientist Lisa Feldman Barrett says that the human brain constructs meaning based on context and focus. In other words, what you focus on grows. If you focus intensely on the problem, it expands. But when you place it within a larger context of life, time, the universe, it shrinks. Sometimes, it even becomes irrelevant. This type of visualization isn't escapism, it's practical wisdom. It's remembering that everything passes. Pain, frustration, discomfort. Nothing is permanent. When you look through the lens of reason and philosophy, you realize most of the things that seem huge today won't matter at all tomorrow. So next time something feels unbearable, distance yourself mentally. Look from above, see the whole picture. You are not what's happening to you. You are the awareness observing it. And the wider your view, the lighter your burden. Remember, the universe is vast. Time is infinite. and your problem is just a tiny dot within it all. Calm is a form of power. Chapter 8. Calm is strength. Picture this. Chaos erupts around you. People are yelling, reacting without thinking, making hasty decisions. Now imagine yourself in the center of it all, grounded, breathing steadily, speaking clearly, and meeting every gaze with unwavering presence. That's not weakness. That's control. That's power. For the Stoics, calm wasn't just a virtue. It was a quiet weapon. It signaled a trained mind, one that refused to be pulled by emotional tides or hand over its inner peace to anyone else. While others are consumed by emotional outbursts, the calm individual holds the reins of their own behavior, and by doing so, influences everything around them. The ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War, put it simply, if your opponent is angry, irritate him. If he is calm, be cautious. He is harder to defeat. Even in battle, the most dangerous were not the loudest, but the most composed. Why? Because no one can predict the moves of someone who remains still in the face of tension. Calm reveals readiness. It shows that you've thought things through, prepared yourself, and trained your spirit to handle adversity. As neuroscientist Dr. Judy Willis points out, a calm brain makes smarter decisions. When we're in panic mode, our brain switches to defense, not wisdom. In other words, staying calm is staying connected to the most rational, strategic, and wise part of yourself. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote in his journal, if someone insults you, ask yourself, does their action upset me or is it my interpretation of it? That constant self-examination is what brings us back to control. It leads us to an active serenity, not a passive calm, but one that chooses not to lash out precisely because it could. And calmness? It's contagious. In tense environments, a composed person can shift the entire energy of the room. That quiet presence radiates confidence, clarity, and leadership. People instinctively trust those who stay centered, speak thoughtfully, and act with intention. But calm is a skill. It takes effort to build. It starts small, not replying in anger, not taking everything personally, pausing before you act. These tiny internal pauses are what strengthen you, so one day you can remain unshaken in moments when others would collapse. So next time you're tempted to react impulsively, choose stillness, choose to breathe, choose to meet the moment with presence. Real power isn't in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself, and in that, calm will always be your greatest display of strength. Anger shouts, calm leads. Don't react with anger, play the mental game. Chapter 9. Master your mind, not the moment. Someone provokes you, tries to get under your skin, spreads lies, questions your worth, or sabotages your work. So what do? Blow up? React in rage? Or do you take a deep breath, stay composed, and think, this is just another level in my mental training? To the Stoics, anger is always a decision. It only shows up when you forget what is actually within your control. But the true Stoic turns every irritation into mental practice. They don't play other people's emotional games, they play their own. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, said it best. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose, and in that choice lies our freedom. That space is where real strength is born. When you learn to recognize that gap, you realize anger isn't automatic, it's optional. And choosing not to feel anger, that's real power. Picture every difficult person as a boss level in a video game. The more toxic the opponent, the more strategic you must become. The more unfair the situation, the sharper your mind must be. Anger wants you to explode. Self-control wants you to win. Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, the best revenge against a provocateur is not becoming like them. So when someone disrespects you, hold on to your dignity. It's not about accepting injustice, it's about handling it without losing your clarity, your direction, or your peace. Mastering this inner game means you stop being surprised by people's behavior. As Clarice Lispector wrote, people are what they are. The problem is the expectations we create. When you're not shocked, you're not controlled. Anger loses its grip, and you gain your freedom. So turn anger into awareness. Instead of reacting, observe. Instead of attacking, stay silent. Instead of explaining, keep walking. This is emotional intelligence. It's about keeping your power in your own hands. It's not about revenge. It's about victory from within, because the one who rattles you, rules you. The one you ignore, disappears. So next time anger knocks, don't open the door. Breathe. Remember, calm is your weapon. And anger is only useful to those who haven't learned how to play the real game. Be aware of life's shortness. Chapter 10. Embrace the fragility of life. Imagine just for a moment that everything you own, your home, your possessions, your relationships, your youth, even your next breath, could vanish without warning. Unsettling? Maybe. But for the Stoics, this awareness wasn't a cause for panic. It was the secret to living with more gratitude, depth, and intention. Life, as the Stoics often reminded, is short, delicate, and unpredictable. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reflections on death, not with gloom, but as a reminder that nothing is guaranteed. Not tomorrow, not even the next hour. He would say, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This ancient practice, memento mori, remember death, isn't about living in fear. It's about living with intensity. What's in front of you now is all you truly have. When you understand that everything is fleeting, you stop wasting energy on the trivial, the grudges, and the anxieties that don't matter in the grand arc of time. The Roman poet Horace once said, "Carpe diem, seize the day," and that advice still holds true. Don't postpone your life. Don't live as if time is endless, because it isn't. What feels eternal today, a heartbreak, a desire, a win, will one day be just memory, dust, story. Everything flows, everything changes, everything ends. Neuroscientist Mary Frances O'Connor, an expert in grief, explains that the awareness of loss is what gives love its depth. The Stoics knew this. When you accept life's impermanence, you value more, not less. You hug your children tighter, you notice the color of the sky, you live with fuller presence because you know it won't last forever, and impermanence is also a comfort. If everything changes, then pain will pass too. Sadness, failure, loss, none of it is eternal. As the philosopher Heraclitus said long before the Stoics, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he is not the same man." Everything changes, including you. Awareness of life's transience makes you calmer, wiser, freer. You stop resisting time and begin to flow with it. You understand the only thing you truly own is the present moment, and it's too valuable to waste on anger, haste, or distraction. So remember, everything you love will change. Everything you fear will too. That's not a tragedy, that's life. And by accepting it with an open heart, you finally begin to live with purpose. Don't wait for time to pass to realize the value of now. Stay awake, stay grateful, stay present, because nothing is truly yours, nothing is permanent. And that's exactly what makes it all so precious. See the pain behind the offense. 11. See the pain behind the offense. When someone attacks you, provokes you, or treats you with disrespect, the automatic reaction is usually anger, an impulse to defend yourself, to fight back, to show that you won't accept being treated that way. But what if you took a step back? What if, instead of reacting with fury, you looked at that person and silently asked, "What is this wounded soul trying to hide?" The Stoics taught us not to take anything personally because almost everything people do is a reflection of themselves, not of us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When someone harms you, it's because they act in ignorance of what is good." In other words, those who hurt are, more often than not, acting from pain, ignorance, or imbalance. This idea resonates with the view of Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "When someone speaks or acts with anger, it is because they are suffering, and suffering wants to be understood." Compassion, in this sense, is not passivity, it is clarity. It is looking at the other not as an enemy but as someone who may have never learned to deal with their own pain. Anger itself is a natural response, but what you do with it is what defines your inner strength. Turning it into compassion doesn't mean accepting abuse or injustice. It means not letting someone else's behavior corrupt your peace and your character. It's a form of deep self-protection. You choose not to carry the weight of bitterness that wasn't born in you. Psychologist Marshall Rosenberg, creator of nonviolent communication, said that behind every aggressive action, there's an unmet need. When you develop this perspective, you begin to see others with more understanding and yourself with more lightness. Anger dissolves when you realize that most human behavior comes from confusion, pain, and fear. Now imagine the strength of someone who, even when attacked, remains firm, clear-minded, and generous, who doesn't respond with hate, but with silence and compassion. That person is not being weak. They are rising above the conflict. They know that fueling the cycle of anger only perpetuates suffering, and that breaking this cycle requires courage and maturity. Turning anger into compassion is a gesture of deep emotional intelligence. It's saying, "I see your pain, but it won't become mine." It's protecting your peace without needing to win arguments or humiliate anyone. Because in the end, as an old Buddhist proverb says, holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone. You are the one who gets burned. So next time someone tries to hurt you, remember, you have a choice. You can feed the fire, or you can put out the flame with the water of compassion. And in that choice lies the true power of a Stoic spirit. Visit the Langda, cultivate gratitude as a shield for the soul. 12. Cultivate gratitude as a shield for the soul. Think of how many times you've caught yourself complaining about traffic, your boss, your body, or the life that still isn't the way you think it should be. Now pause for a moment and look around. Breathe. You're alive. You're reading this. You have eyes that see, a mind that thinks, a heart that feels. That alone is extraordinary. To the Stoics, gratitude wasn't just a beautiful feeling. It was a philosophical practice, a tool to strengthen the soul. It's a daily exercise in recognizing that, despite what's missing, there's so much already present, and that by noticing what we already have, we drastically reduce the power of dissatisfaction, envy, and sadness. Musonius Rufus, teacher of Epictetus, taught that he who doesn't learn to rejoice in what he already possesses will forever be a slave to what he still desires. The Stoic understands that by valuing the present, he does not become passive. He simply stops being ungrateful, because ingratitude is a silent poison that keeps us from seeing the richness hidden in the ordinary. Modern science has confirmed what the ancients already knew. Psychologist Robert Emmons, one of the world's leading gratitude researchers, has shown in his studies that people who practice daily gratitude have higher levels of happiness, better sleep, fewer symptoms of depression, and greater resilience in the face of adversity. Gratitude, then, is a form of resistance. It is saying thank you even in the midst of pain, even when things aren't perfect, even when there's reason to complain. It's seeing what remains, what still works, what is still beautiful, even in the ruins. When you begin to develop gratitude, you start to reprogram your mind to focus on what is right, not just what is wrong. You realize that what seems ordinary today, like a glass of clean water, a heartfelt conversation, or a simple sunrise, is in fact a silent miracle happening before your eyes. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a heart that recognizes the value of what it has." That recognition is a choice, a habit, a practice, and the more you practice, the more your mind shifts from scarcity to peace. Gratitude is not about denying problems. It's about having the courage to see the light even when there are shadows. It's a kind of wisdom that frees us from the illusion that we need more in order to be happy, when in reality, true abundance begins when we learn to see the richness of the now. So today, don't wait for grand miracles. Look at what already exists and silently say thank you. Because when you're grateful, you're not just recognizing the value of life, you're honoring yourself like a true Stoic. Find freedom in acceptance. 13. Find freedom in acceptance. Imagine for a moment that everything around you is beyond your control, the actions of others, the circumstances you cannot change, even the way the world is currently organized. Now imagine that instead of fighting against it, you simply accept these conditions without resistance. How would that make you feel? For the Stoics, acceptance is not passivity, but rather a form of wisdom that sets us free. We often spend an enormous amount of energy trying to control the uncontrollable, resisting what is inevitable. But true strength, according to the Stoics, lies in recognizing that some things are beyond our reach, and by accepting them, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, taught that we cannot control events, but we can control our reaction to them. This idea is central to Stoic philosophy. Accepting what we cannot change gives us an inner peace that nothing can shake. When we force ourselves to control everything, we become prisoners of our own will. But when we accept what we cannot change, we become truly free. Acceptance does not mean complacency. It doesn't mean we should accept injustice, suffering, or adversity without trying to improve or find solutions. But while we strive for something better, we can accept the present as it is, without being emotionally drained by it. The philosopher Alan Watts, though not a Stoic, spoke of a similar idea. He said, "Life, like water, flows naturally. When we try to go against the current, we suffer. When we accept it as it is, life becomes a light and fluid dance." This view reminds us that constant resistance to reality is the root of suffering. Accepting life as it is, with all its imperfections and unpredictability, allows us to live in harmony with it. Acceptance also allows us to free our minds from a constant cycle of frustration and anxiety. Instead of spending energy trying to change what we cannot control, we can use it to focus on what truly matters: our actions, our reactions, and what we can do within our own limits. Now think about the situations that afflict you. Maybe you have a difficult relationship with someone, a job that doesn't fulfill you, or a life circumstance that seems out of your control. True freedom lies in learning to accept these things while still working to change them if possible. More importantly, you learn to live without letting them define your state of mind. Acceptance does not mean giving up. On the contrary, it frees your mind to act with more clarity and efficiency. It teaches us to choose our battles, to discern what truly deserves our energy, and to let go of what we cannot change. In this way, instead of carrying the weight of things we cannot control, We free ourselves to be who we truly are, free from the chains of emotional resistance. So remember, to accept is not to resign. It is to have the wisdom to understand that there are things beyond our reach. When you make this a daily practice, you find a deep peace, a peace that does not depend on external circumstances, but on your ability to live in harmony with what is. That is true freedom. Build resilience in the face of adversity. 14. Build resilience in the face of adversity. Imagine for a moment that you're going through a difficult time, an unexpected loss, a crisis at work, an illness, or a challenge that seems insurmountable. Most of us, when facing such moments, feel fragile, powerless, even tempted to give up. But what if instead of being consumed by despair, you could rise stronger? What if instead of succumbing to the pain, you used that moment of adversity to grow? The Stoics believe that true strength doesn't show itself in easy times, but in how we respond to hardship. For them, resilience is not just about enduring pain, but using it as a tool for inner strengthening. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic masters, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This means that even in the face of suffering and chaos, the way we choose to respond can be the deciding factor in our peace and personal growth. This ability to endure, to persist even when everything seems against us, is what defines a resilient person. It's not about denying pain or difficulty, but about facing them head-on, with the confidence that, like all things in life, this too shall pass. Psychologist Stephen Southwick, who deeply studied human resilience, says resilient people are not those who never fail, but those who, even in the face of failure, keep trying. This is a core principle of Stoicism. It doesn't matter how many times you fall, but how many times you get back up. The true victory lies in rising again, with courage, wisdom, and humility, learning from each fall and growing stronger with every challenge. Resilience doesn't come from a lack of difficulties, but from the ability to transform them into learning and growth experiences. When we face adversity with a Stoic mindset, we don't see it as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and better prepared for what lies ahead. For example, imagine a situation where you fail at an important project. The automatic response might be frustration, discouragement, or fear of failing again. But instead of giving in to those feelings, a resilient mindset would adopt the Stoic view, seeing every failure as a valuable lesson. What can I learn from this? Becomes the central question. How can I use this experience to become more skilled, more prepared, more balanced? Every mistake becomes a stepping stone to future success. Furthermore, resilience is also about maintaining calm in pressure-filled situations. The philosopher once taught, "It's not the load that breaks you down, but the way you carry it." This means that when facing difficulties, it's essential to keep a clear mind and stay emotionally centered. Rather than getting lost in immediate suffering, we can learn to face adversity with calm and control, seeing it as part of the journey, not the end of it. Stoic resilience is fueled by the idea that everything that happens is an opportunity to exercise our virtue and wisdom. And it's through this lens that we can not only survive, but grow during hard times. So remember, adversity is not an enemy, but a teacher. It challenges, strengthens, and transforms. When you choose to face life with resilience, you become unbreakable, capable of weathering any storm, knowing that the sun will always shine again. True strength lies in continuing, learning, and evolving, no matter what obstacles arise. Find peace in simplicity. Quiz. Find peace in simplicity. Imagine waking up in the morning, and the first thing you see is a world filled with choices, obligations, expectations, and noise. There's always something to do, something to fix, something to chase. The day begins and your mind is already racing, caught in the endless demands of modern life. But what if, instead, you could just pause and appreciate the simple things? The Stoics believe that true peace lies in simplicity, in stepping away from the constant pursuit of more and learning to value what we already have. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said that happiness does not lie in possessions but in their use. And with that, he invited us to reflect on how often we lose ourselves chasing external things, when inner peace can be found in what's most simple and essential. Simplicity, in the Stoic view, doesn't mean living a monastic life or depriving ourselves of joy. It means finding joy in the little things, in quiet moments, in a still mind, and in genuine relationships. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to consume, to chase the next goal, to earn more, to do more. But at some point, we need to choose the peace and calm that simplicity brings. Philosopher Henry David Thoreau once wrote, "Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. We are experts at creating complexity, surrounding ourselves with things and tasks that in the end don't bring real fulfillment." True happiness, according to the Stoics, is not found in excess, but in balance and simplicity. Less is more isn't just an aesthetic concept, it's a philosophy of life. Have you ever noticed how life's greatest joys come from the simplest things? A warm cup of coffee in the morning, a walk in nature, a deep conversation with a friend. It's not the big achievements that move us the most, but the small moments of peace, the ones that appear when we stop chasing more and start appreciating what truly matters. Seneca, in his letters, reminded us that happiness doesn't come from possessions, but from the ability to be content with little. When you let go of the constant chase for material things, you get closer to a state of serenity that no external object can offer. True wealth lies in the ability to be happy with what you already have. This kind of simplicity also applies to our thoughts. Often our minds are overloaded, full of worries and expectations, but by seeking mental simplicity, you can train your mind to focus on what really matters, to find clarity in the midst of chaos. As Epictetus said, freedom begins the moment you stop being a slave to your own distractions. So imagine a day where you choose simplicity. You wake up, do what's necessary, appreciate each moment, and allow yourself to rest. You don't get lost in overthinking or in the rush of modern life. You allow yourself to enjoy the simple pleasure of being alive, of being present. When you find peace in simplicity, you start to realize you don't need much to be happy. You don't need a perfect day, a struggle-free life, or huge accomplishments to feel fulfilled. Peace is in every step, in every breath, in accepting what is, and in being grateful for what already is. So if you truly want to find peace, begin by simplifying your life. Simplify your thoughts, your goals, your relationships, and your expectations. Let go of the unnecessary weight you're carrying, and when you do, you'll realize that peace was always there, waiting for you to see it, in its simplest form. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment below. If you're not sure what to write, just type gratitude. That way, I'll know you watched until the end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, take a second and hit that button. Here, we keep learning, together, how to apply ancient wisdom to live with more intention today. See you next time.